Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about the latest updates pertaining to Amber's alleged charity donations. So I'm going to talk about the latest updates first, and then we're going to look into the legal repercussions to what has just transpired. Now, if you've been following this case for quite a while, or if you've been in the loop, then you would know that back in 2016, when Amber and Johnny's divorce commenced, she promised to donate the $7 million of the divorce settlement to the Children's Hospital in LA and the ACLU. She has stuck by this pledge publicly since then.
And actually were all kinds of accusations flying your way when you said all this, and then there was a divorce settlement, you got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money, but then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
More power to you, because that's something that I've never heard of.
I wanted nothing.
And furthermore, she's also repeated that pledge and stated that she has already donated the money in court documents, so in her witness statements. And the cherry on top, of course, is Mr. Justice Nichols' reliance on Amber's claims. In his judgment, he stated that the fact that she donated the money to charity proves that she is not the gold digger that Johnny claims that she is. So that means that her claims were taken into consideration when the judgment was arrived at. They contributed to Mr. Justice Nichols' conclusion that she was an honest and charitable person, and that Johnny was the person that she painted him out to be. Now, Amber's been fighting the past few months to stop the donations from even being brought into the Virginia trial. I've made 2 videos talking about this in depth, and I will be linking them in the description box. So please check them out if you haven't already. Now, the ACLU also is being quite uncooperative. They haven't disclosed whether Amber donated any money specifically to them. And this is despite the fact that Johnny's team have been chasing after them for this information. Now, they have been issued a subpoena, and the subpoena has 5 requests. Request number 1 is for all documents that relate to any donations made to the ACLU or for their benefit by Amber from the 1st of January through and including the present. All communications between the ACLU and Amber regarding any donations made. All communications between the ACLU and Amber regarding the divorce action. All communications between them regarding the relationship between Amber and Johnny. And finally, all documents, including all communications that relate to any press release, public statements, or other publicity related to any donations made by Amber. And again, this is all spanning from the 1st of January 2016. So as we all know, Johnny and Amber's divorce proceedings commenced in 2016. Amber was set to receive $7 million in the divorce settlement. As I said earlier, she has pledged to donate to the Children's Hospital in LA and the ACLU. I believe $3.5 million there and $3.5 million to the ACLU. Now, in this letter dated the 24th of August 2016, which was sent from Johnny's accountant, Mr. Edward White, to Ms. Tiffany El Nasser, who works at the Children's Hospital. The letter states that a check of $100,000 is enclosed, which constitutes a donation to Children's Hospital LA Foundation in the name of Amber Heard. This donation is being made in accordance with Ms. Heard's pledged gift of $3.5 million. This check represents the first of multiple scheduled installments to honor the full amount of Ms. Heard's pledged gift. And then attached is the check for $100,000, which was paid by Johnny. As you can see on the upper left of the check, it clearly says John C. DEPP II. So just to explain, Johnny donated the first $100,000 just to get the ball rolling. Now, on the 26th of June 2019, 3 years after this initial donation was made, Amber received a letter from Candy Davidson Goldbrun, who is the Associate Senior Vice President of the Children's Hospital LA. That letter states that they are following up on the correspondence that Children's Hospital Foundation received on August 26, 2016, which CHLA was notified by Edward White that a $3.5 million pledged gift had been made in your honor. Since the first installment, CHLA has not received further installments. I'm inquiring if you have knowledge if CHLA should accept further installments on your behalf or if the pledge will not be fulfilled. So 3 years later, Amber hasn't paid a single cent to CHLA. Now, they're being open with this reality. They're not trying to cover for Amber, but the same can't be said of the ACLU. I do believe that she has personal connections and personal friends working in the organization. Now, it's also important to note that Amber was officially honored in 2017 by CHLA, as you can see in the screen. And this was in recognizing contributions in excess of $1 million. Now, to make things a little bit more confusing, in 2017 and 2018, 2 anonymous donations were made in honor of Amber Heard. Not on behalf of her, but in honor. So on behalf would mean that it's technically coming from her. So the $100,000 donation that Johnny made initially was on her behalf because it was from the same source of money that she was going to get anyway. But this means that this was coming from someone else. There are speculations that the donor is Elon Musk, but whomever it may be, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's not Amber. So that's $3.5 million that we know was not donated to CHLA, and one can only surmise that the same can be said of the ACLU, because if they were donated, she would have given us the proof faster than you can say Quidditch. Sorry, lifelong Harry Potter fan here. I couldn't resist. But in all honesty, no matter who you are, when you are publicly accused of lying and you have the proof that you're not, anyone who is actually being truthful wouldn't hesitate for 1 second to prove that they're not lying. The fact that the ACLU itself refuses to submit the evidence really makes you wonder whether the donation was ever made. And then, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's the fact that Amber is fighting so hard to bar anything related to the donations from the Virginia trial. Now, this is where things get really muddled up for Amber. And this is usually the situation that liars end up finding themselves in. They become so confused and disoriented by their own lies that they themselves are stuck in that tangled web. So Amber's lawyer says that she won't specify how much her client had given to either charity to date, saying only that she intended to fulfill the $7 million pledge eventually. So now her own lawyers, who have steadfastly fought on her behalf and tried to convince the world that she is this honest, trustworthy, and honorable person, they themselves have found themselves in this horrible situation where they have to come out publicly and say that she's gonna do it eventually. Amber's attorney further blamed Johnny for the delay, saying that Amber has been forced to spend millions defending herself against false accusations made against her in the ongoing defamation case. Except the divorce settlement was paid in installments, and it was paid before the defamation cases, either in the UK or the US, were even commenced by Johnny. So by the time she received the money, no cases even existed for her to defend herself against. Remember my catchphrase from a couple of videos ago? Make it make sense? Lies never make sense. So there's no point even wasting our time trying. And you really know that the lies are ridiculous when the Daily Mail itself starts to call you out on them. In relation to the libel case, by the way, she was a witness. So she didn't really have a lot of legal costs, if any, that had to be covered. NGN would have paid for all of her expenses. All right, now for what you are all here for, which are the legal consequences of this revelation. So the first question is whether there are any repercussions to not honoring the pledge in a contractual sense. And this question was answered in a previous video that I made back in September, and I'll be including the clip from that video here. Charitable pledges are actually treated more as contracts in California. So since charitable pledges are analyzed as a matter of contract law, then the rules of contract law apply. This means that pledges are not enforceable unless, number one, the pledger receives consideration for making the pledge, which means they receive something in exchange for making the pledge, or, secondly, the charity has detrimentally relied on the pledge. In California, what constitutes sufficient consideration is determined on a case-by-case basis. So there's no hard and fast rule or a list of examples or situations that qualify as sufficient consideration. An example is when, let's say, a building or a hospital or a ward is named after the person making the pledge. So a ward named the Amber Heard ward, for example, that has been found by courts in California to constitute sufficient consideration. And as for detrimental reliance, that essentially means that the charity relied on the person's pledge to its detriment. So maybe it incurred significant losses or costs, or it suddenly has obligations to third parties because of the pledge that was made. If these two accounts can be proven, consideration and detrimental reliance, then she could actually be held accountable for the false pledge that she has made. At that point, by the way, I didn't mention that she was publicly honored, as I stated in this video. So that may be seen as consideration. But as I said in the previous video, it's really up to the organizations themselves, so the charities, to pursue her to enforce her pledge. Now, the second limb that I've been asked to talk about is whether this can impact the UK appeal or the retrial and the case in Virginia. Now, if you've watched my previous video on the appeals process in the UK, then you'll remember that usually the appeals court does not accept fresh or new evidence. It only reviews the evidence that was available at the trial stage that the trial judge relied upon to arrive at his decision. However, there are exceptional circumstances where such evidence will be allowed. For example, that evidence did not exist at the time of the trial. So in this situation, clearly these letters and all of this evidence did not exist and was not available at the time of trial. So what could potentially happen is that argument could be made to the Court of Appeal, or Johnny's team will just stick to their original plan and their original set of arguments to get a retrial in the UK where this evidence can be introduced as part of that fresh trial. Since they're asking for a retrial, I have a feeling that that's what they're going to want to do. However, this new evidence could be included as a further argument to persuade the Court of Appeal to grant a retrial. And the reason for this is because the judge expressly mentioned the donations in his decision. They contributed to his final decision. So any argument that they are irrelevant immediately goes out of the window because of that fact. The second question was whether this affects her credibility in any way. And I think the answer is very clear. Amber's lawyers themselves have said that this has no bearing to the defamation case. So they're saying this is irrelevant. I disagree. I think it is highly relevant to her credibility. I have said this multiple times in countless videos before. When it comes to a defamation case where the truth of the statements is an absolute defense, automatically the credibility of the defendant is of the utmost relevance. If the defendant is a liar, then that greatly contributes to the jury's assessment or the court's assessment of whether their statements were true. And this lie is a very big one. It's not a silly or marginal topic. She has publicly pledged a vast amount of money to charities and has maintained since 2016 that she has donated the money. And if anyone else out there is still arguing that this is irrelevant and has no bearing to whether she defamed Johnny or not, why did the judge consider it in his judgment if it was a marginal or irrelevant issue? I concede that it's irrelevant when it comes to the allegations that she's making, purely in the sense that one has to do with how she was treated in a marriage, allegedly treated, and another has to do with donations. So one is not directly connected to the other. So the connection that is being argued by Johnny's team is credibility. I really recommend that you watch the two videos that I've linked down below pertaining to her attempts at excluding the evidence in relation to her donations, by the way, because it really puts things in context and it really explains why Johnny's team wants to introduce the evidence. Other than that, I believe that's it for this video. I really hope I didn't miss anything. The main point was to, first of all, lay out the facts and show the contradictions in her story and the holes in her timeline, and then to talk about the repercussions. So I do believe I've covered it all. As always, don't forget to let me know what you think in the comments below. I know that a lot of us didn't really need to be told that she never donated. I believe it was very clear from her actions that she was not being honest and wanted to keep things in the dark for a very specific reason. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll catch you in a future video.